Hello again, YouTubers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm your host, the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing and showing you how to play Atari Centipede. Now, Atari Centipede is a board game based on the classic Atari video game of the same name, and it was published by IDW Games, and it was designed by John Gilmore, Nicole Klein, and Anthony Amato. Now, this game is listed as being for ages 12 and up at 30 to 45 minutes and for 2 to 4 players. So let's start there. Now, the ages 12 and up, I have a big problem with this. And the reason is this is a very underestimate of how old you should be to play this game. Big underestimate. And there's a couple reasons for this. One reason is the movements in the game of Centipede are quite complex and hard to keep track of and do correctly. And there's a lot of things to keep track of. And that makes me feel that someone who's 12 years old would have a large problem with this. The other problem I have with this is that this game is very much a simulation of the old Atari Centipede video game. And if you've never played the game, and people who are 12 years old probably have never played the game unless they have a parent who's really into it and taught them how to play, then all the movement of the insects can seem ridiculously arbitrary and bizarre and really hard to wrap your mind around. So because of this, I'm going to up that 12 and up to probably more like 15 and up and say that, you know what? If you've never played the game of Centipede, maybe 17 and up, because it's that hard to wrap your mind around it if you've never played the old video game. Now, the 30 to 45 minutes is a pretty good estimate. Much closer to 30 minutes if you're playing 2-player. 45 is really for the 4-player version. And as the 2 or 4 players, I'm glad they didn't say 2 to 4 players, because there's really no way to play this game 3 players, and I'm glad they didn't pretend. You have a 2-player version of this game, which is the standard version of this game, which plays like the old school video game of Centipede. One person's the centipede and the other person's the gnome shooting at the centipede. And in a 4-player version, it's very different than the old version, because each team, you have 2 teams, each team has a centipede and a gnome player. Thoroughly changes the way the game plays. Now, without any further talking about the game itself, let's open this up and have a look at the components. So the first component we have here is the board. Now, the board looks quite a bit like the old video game. They even tried to make it look all pixely and whatnot, which is really kind of neat. We've got a rule book, which, keeping with the whole video game nostalgia feel, and this game is definitely playing off that whole nostalgia vibe, it looks like a old owner's manual to a Centipede arcade machine, which is pretty neat, or maybe the rule book to the home video game version of Centipede. Now, the rule book is full color, and it is very well done. There's lots of diagrams. There was only one minor ambiguity I could find really searching for it in the book. So I would say the rule book gets a really big thumb up from me, because I would say it's very well done, and as complicated as this game is, it explains it in a way that's understandable. And it goes over everything. It shows you lots of diagrams to show you how everything moves and functions. Very well done rulebook. The next thing we have here is we have a lot of cards. Now, you have sets of cards to play enough for both the 2-player and the 4-player mode. Now, there is a set of cards both for the Centipede player and a set of cards for the Gnome player. Now, for the Gnome player, they have a dice pool card here, which says dice pool on the back, and on the front has 6 squares where their dice go. And then they have these cards here for their different special abilities that they can do. These 2 are meant to look like the, let's see if I can get them lined up correctly. They're meant to look like the arcade console of the old Centipede arcade machines, and you flip them over, they have red X's on the other side so that you know they have been used. And then they have 2 more cards. This one is just shows a hand there. And then this one is the glitch card. And again, all of them have the red X's on the back. Then we have the Centipede cards. Now, they have a card that is a little cheat sheet for the speed of the Centipede, depending on how large it is, how many pieces it has. And then they have a deck of cards here that they shuffle up, and you get a 3-card hand for playing Centipede, and these cards are played every turn to spawn new mushrooms or spawn different bugs like the spider, the little arachnid there, the baby centipede there, the flea, etc. All the different arthropods. The game incorrectly refers to them all as insects, but of course spiders are arachnids. Then we've got the nice chunky wooden pieces here. So they are all designed to look 4-bit, just like the old school Centipede game, with that kind of, these are the bugs here. You've got the spiders and the fleas. You've got centipede pieces there in 2 different colors for when you're playing the 4-player version. And you have the little gnomes, again, in 2 different colors for when you're playing the 4-player version. The final bit of components are the dice, which are for the gnome player. They roll these, and then these are able to be used to move and shoot, etc. So the sides of the dice show different symbols on them. Those little diamond symbols are shots. The number is how many spaces you can move. And if you have a rectangle there, what that means is that allows you to flip one of your cards back over. When you're moving as the gnome, you have to do the symbols from left to right. You do all of them, but in between any of them, you can flip a card and use it and use its ability. Then the card symbol allows you to flip one back over to the usable side. And if you don't use any of your cards in your turn, you're also allowed to flip one back over to the usable side. So that's a look at everything that comes in the box for Centipede. So now let's head over to the table, and I'm going to show you how the game is played. We're going to run you through a few turns of it. And then when we're done, we're going to come back. I'm going to talk about how this game feels. I'm going to review it. I'm going to rate it. And then we're going to get a second opinion from Lynn. Okay, so here we can see a 2-player game of Centipede set up. So now we each took turns in setting up, placing 3 mushrooms at a time in one of the columns between the 2 dotted lines on either side of the board. When placing the mushrooms, you can never have more than 3 mushrooms in any particular column. So we take turns, we set them all up, and then we rolled off 3 dice each, and whoever has the higher number on those dice chooses whether they want to be the gnome player or the centipede. So for this example, I am going to be the gnome player, and Lynn is going to be the centipede player. So after we do that, the gnome player chooses what side of the board they want to be on. So the gnome player chose this side of the board, and then they place their gnome in any space in the gnome row for that side of the board. So the gnome is going to be placed right in the middle there. They take all of their control cards that they put out here, as well as the card for their dice. They can roll their dice and get them out on the board at the beginning of their first turn. Now, after they do that, the centipede player, who's going to be sitting opposite side of the board, gets to move their centipede onto the board, which they move on 6 spaces onto the board, and they also start out with a hand of 3 cards. So now the centipede, every time it bounces into something moving horizontally, it has to move down a row, and if anything is in the row when it's moving down, it will eat it. So Lynn has moved her centipede 6 spaces onto the board there, as you can see. And the full centipede moves on, and now it is ready to play, and she has her 3-card hand. So now the first thing you do on the beginning of the first turn for the gnome, and the gnome always goes first, is roll the dice. Then you place the dice onto your dice pool card. When they're on the dice pool card, they haven't been used yet. Once you use them, you move them off of the dice pool card to show that they have been used. If your dice pool card is ever down to 1 die at the beginning of your turn, you may for free re-roll all the dice. Now on every gnome's turn, the gnome player must choose one of these dice to use, and use them in the order from left to right, all the symbols on the die, and may choose to use any of their cards here to get extra abilities, and then they flip those cards over, and they can't be used again until they're flipped back over. Now, there is a rectangle symbol on the die which allows you to flip cards back over, as well as if you take a turn without using any of those cards, you may also flip one of them back over. So the first thing I'm going to do as the gnome player is I'm going to flip the glitch card, which allows me to destroy any mushroom anywhere on the board. I'm going to do that and destroy this mushroom here to make the centipede keep going horizontally for me there. Then I'm going to, let me see here. I'm going to use this one, which allows me to shoot my wand, which will destroy a mushroom there. Move one and shoot again, destroying the mushroom there. Then I'm going to be shooting one more time by flipping this card here and destroy that mushroom there. Now it is the centipede player's turn.
I'm going to play Berserk.
Okay.
And then I'm going to move, my speed is 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then Berserk lets me move my centipede 2 squares down.
Which going down allows you to eat a mushroom.
Without changing my facing.
So you'll still be going that direction.
Continue that way.
Okay. So then you draw your new card there. Now let's see. You are only one space away from me, but I do not have something that will let me move one space. So, well, I do. I have the card that will let me move one space. So I'm going to use this die, which says move 2, and I'm going to go 1, 2. Then I'm going to flip the card to move 1 back and shoot with the die, the one shot there, and that makes a mushroom appear for destroying the piece of the centipede. And then that's it for my turn, and it is your turn.
I am going to play the flea.
Oh, those are evil. Indeed.
I'm going to put him here.
Okay. And then...
Then I move my centipede 2 spaces now.
And the flea moves 2 as well and eats any mushroom in the way, but he can drop mushrooms off as he goes, so you can put it right back. Yeah. Okay. So, oh boy, that puts me in a tough predicament there. I'm gonna use this die here to move 3. 1, 2, 3. Shoot the mushroom with my wand there. Refresh a card, and because I am not going to use any cards for this round, I'm also going to refresh a second card, and that's it for my turn.
Okay. I am going to spawn a baby centipede.
Okay. So he gets to move on 6 spaces. 1, 2, gets to go down again, basically. 3, 4, 5, and then down one more because he bounces off the other centipede. 6. Okay.
And then my centipede moves 2 spaces. So he's going to bounce off of that, eat that guy. It's 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait, what am I moving?
2.
I don't know, it's 2. Yeah.
It's keep him facing this way, so you remember to bounce still, because he still has yet to bounce off that actual mushroom there. Okay. And actually, the flea is going to have to...
Oh, yes, the flea has to move.
So he's actually going to eat a couple pieces of centipede there. Okay, and then also you didn't move, you got to move the baby centipede as well. So he bounces there and goes down. How many spaces does he move?
4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
And he leaves mushrooms?
Yes, anywhere he wants.
Doesn't really matter, but hey.
Okay. All right, so let's see here. I can go 1, 2, 3. I'm going to use this one here, move 1, 2, 3, and then use this to move back 1 before doing the shot. So I shoot the head of the centipede there. I'm going to use this card to do a second shot to kill the flea. And then I get to refresh 1 card, so I'm going to refresh the shot card. And then that's it for my turn.
I'm going to play a mushroom. So now he moves 1.
Oh, I forgot. As I killed the centipede, I actually have to replace the centipede in the flea. I have to put mushrooms there, so it's going to make your centipede able to come down quicker.
4.
Okay.
And then he moves 3. So 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so, and then on my turn, I'm going to use this one here, which lets me go 1, 2, 3, shoot the mushroom. I'm going to flip this to kill the baby centipede for 1, and then I get to refresh a card, so I'm going to bring back my shot card, and that's it for my turn.
I'm going to spawn another centipede. The rest of my centipede pieces.
So now she gets a 4-piece centipede because that's how many pieces she has left. And in addition to that, it comes on the board a full 6 spaces like they did before.
5, 6.
And it ups the speed of all of her insects and the centipedes by 1. All of her creatures are up to speed by 1. So it just looked like I was doing well, and then not so much.
So the 2 usually moves 3.
Now he goes 4.
He's going to move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And the 4 usually moves how far?
4 usually moves 2. So
Now
he's going to
three.
move 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. So at this point, I'm down to 1 die, so I would re-roll all my dice and put them back on the card. And then I'm going to pick this 2 and a shot because that will put me 1, 2, and I'll shoot the head off that centipede, so it's down to a single piece centipede now. So it's going to have to be actually, I think it was this way, and then it'll bounce around the other way. And then I'm going to flip my card here and shoot that piece as well. And that's it. That is how you play a game of Centipede. Now, you play until one of the players wins, and there are a couple ways to win. Either the gnome player has to have killed all of the centipede pieces off of the board, or if one of the centipedes is able to enter the gnome row, or if any of the other insects are able to come to the space directly above the gnome at any point during any player's turn. So even if the gnome moves into the space when there's an insect already there, in any of those cases, the gnome dies. And that's it. And then the centipede player will win. So let's head back to the table. I'm going to talk about how this game feels. I'm going to review it and rate it, and then we're going to get a second opinion from Lynn. Welcome back. That was how you play a 2-player game of Centipede. Now in the 4-player game, each side has a gnome and a centipede, and you don't use the glitch card, which is the one that allows you to choose and destroy a mushroom. And you just play, it becomes very, very, the 4-player game becomes very busy and very complicated, and there's a lot going on. Now, the 2-player game is the one that, if you're buying this, you would probably be buying it for. So I'm going to talk a little more about that. I'm going to address the 4-player game a little more later on. But, so the 2-player game, I mean, this is a thoroughly asymmetrical game that is a simulation of the video game. I mean, it is a very, very close and tight simulation of the original video game. So I want to talk about that first. Now, when I see the adaptation of a property that is from an old video game, I want to play a game that captures the feel of it, not necessarily thoroughly duplicates it, because you know what? I mean, you can find Centipede to play with a mouse on your computer for free online, and you know what? If I wanted to play Centipede like that, if I wanted to play that close to the original game, I would play the video game. I was hoping for something that captured the feel, but was a little bit different. This is like a turn-based total simulation of that game. And then as an asymmetrical game, the big question is how balanced are the sides? Because, it's impossible to perfectly balance sides in an asymmetrical game. This is true. And usually one side is a little harder and one side is a little easier than the other. But this is a very unbalanced game. It is much easier to win with the Centipede than it is to win with the gnome character. The thing is that the Centipede has a leg up in so many ways. The mushrooms are very strategic for the Centipede for helping it to bounce around and try to get down to the other side of the board. The fleas, once they hit the gnome side of the board, they just sit there. And if you don't kill a flea before it hits your side of the board, you can't move the gnome past there anymore. And there's a section of the board you can't move into and shoot, because as soon as you move into the flea space, you die. And then just when you think you're about to finish off a centipede, your opponent, the centipede player, will play the spawn new centipede card, spawn a new centipede, and up the speed of all the centipedes that are on the board. And then just when you think you've bought yourself a little time, they'll spawn a new mushroom and have one of their centipedes come zipping around closer to your side of the board faster, or they'll do that berserk card and shoot a couple rows closer to you. Here's the thing. We've played this game half a dozen times with different people playing as the centipede and as the gnome. We've done it the way it should be done, which is that you randomly decide by rolling the dice off, and whoever rolls higher chooses if they want to be the gnome or the centipede, and then the gnome chooses which side of the board they want to be on to help balance it out. And the gnome has never won. Ever. Yet. It's always been the centipede. I understand when it's a little harder for one side to win because it's asymmetrical, but it seems as long as your opponent is of anywhere close to your level of intelligence or strategic thinking, it seems like it's almost impossible to win as the gnome. The centipede has too much of an advantage in this game, and that's a really, really big problem. Now, in the 4-player mode, it's much more balanced because you each have a centipede and you each have a gnome, and it feels much more balanced, but it also feels incredibly busy. And then again, when your team wins, it's going to be because of the centipede player. It's not going to be because of the gnome player, because the gnome player is nowhere near as powerful as the centipede player. They're just sort of like an assistant to the centipede player. And yeah, so it's kind of tough to give this one a good review because of how unbalanced it is. Another thing I really have to draw attention to is how hard it is to wrap your mind around how everything moves if you've never played the game of Centipede. This is definitely a game that is trying to very much play on your nostalgia. And if you are someone who played Centipede, you're going to look at it and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I know how centipedes move. They bounce off things and they come down a level and then they turn around. But I was playing this game with Lynn, and Lynn was never a big fan of Centipede back in the day, even though, along with me, she is old enough to have been a fan of Centipede. But she never played it back in the day. It wasn't her game. So it took her a couple of games just to wrap her head around how the centipedes moved. And it seemed bizarre and really arbitrary to her. So if you're trying to teach this game to someone who's never really played Centipede, they're going to have a real tough time of it. Now, all these things considered, I did kind of sometimes have fun while playing this game, but not enough to really like it, and not enough to offset how lopsided, how completely unbalanced the game is towards the Centipede player, which is why when it comes down to it, I have to give Centipede 4 out of 10 stars, because while I could be talked into playing this game again if someone else owned a copy and they really wanted to play it, I don't think this one is going to hang out in my collection for very long because I don't really like it. It's not very good. And it makes me sad because I was a big fan of the video game and I was really looking forward to playing this game and I was really hoping I was going to like it, but I didn't. But let's get a second opinion. Lynn, how many stars out of 10 would you give to Atari Centipede?
A 4.
So you're right there with me. So Lynn is right there with me. 4 stars from Lynn, 4 stars from me, which means both of us could be coerced into playing it again, but we don't really like it, and we wouldn't really want to play it again. And there you have it. So that is, unfortunately, a 2 thumbs down review from us here at the Board Game Captain. Now, if you really like Centipede, why don't you comment down below and tell me what it is you really like about this game, and you can tell me I'm wrong, and that's fine, because you know what? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, either on the game of Centipede or on this video, feel free to put them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see us do more review and tutorial videos like this one, be sure to give us a like, share this video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelt with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.